troisième.
It's okay?
Shall we start?
Yes.
The first one?
Yes, we should start. I will sit right there.
Will my accent be understood by people abroad?
I'm sure.
Nostalgia is a word which is ridden to death. Well, let me tell you, this afternoon I am feeling truly nostalgic because I am coming back to a place where about 60 years ago or so we spent some of the happiest moments of our life. You see those tables there? We used to, 10 of us used to sit there and indulge in what is in Bengal's great passion, adda. That means, like the endless talks in bistros and cafes in Paris. Okay. Now, and the man who was one of the central figures, I'm taking one of them because there is another man also who was equally good at that time, was the future maker of Pather Panchali, Satyajit Ray. Now let me tell you, when I first met, when I was about 16 or 17, I was not totally insular like most Bengalis at that time, because I used to go to the bookstalls here and buy all kinds of foreign magazines and all conceivable subjects. For I could get even 8 or 10 magazines for 8 annas. There, at least 2 days in a week, I used to see a tall man with sculptured face, lean, and almost sometimes standing next to me, buying magazines and etc. Then you talk to him. Somebody asked me, how can I talk to you? I'm a pygmy, 5'7" and you're 6'4". Is it possible for me to talk to him? If you were sitting in chairs, probably I could have talked to him. But not when you are standing, you are vertical. In any case, that man was so beautiful. I thought he never noticed me, but later he said, yes, I used to notice you very much. I said, so on. So after that, when we became habitués or habitués of the coffee house, yeah. Now, every week, every day, before the coffee house was started in 1942, the first coffee house in Calcutta. Before that, there were tea shops, small places with 20 chairs and tables, and we used to go and have our sessions talk there, adda. And somebody called it, one of our professors, that all the tea shop addas are like unrecognized universities. Because there, heads clash, ideas conflict, you discuss, you fight, not with your blows, but with your words. New gods are created, old gods are replaced, and that's how, your mind improves and bristles with ideas, and then it prepares you for the rest of the life. Everybody, I think about our adda in the coffee house, yeah, lots and lots have been written in books, and articles and things like that. But as a personal member of the adda, I'll tell you what happened. See, at that time, Ray had finished his education, training in art in Shantiniketan, come here and become, virtually by 1948 or so, he had become the art director of the company, of PJQ. I also used to work in another company, and the other figures that came there were different, every day from 1:30, 1:15 to 2:30 we lingered here, because it was impossible to go back to office by, sort of forsaking the pleasures of God. Okay. Satyajit Ray was, of course, one of the leading figures. And then there was another man, Kamal Kumar. You see, any adda, I'll tell you what, has to have an optimum number of people. You can have an idea of 20 people, 30 people, 8 or 10. And ours was 8 or 10 was the constant figure. And we all rushed here. And I'll tell you the kind of people who came here. One of them was Kamal Kumar Mazumdar, a Bengali who always wore dhuti and Punjabi, but flamboyantly Gallic in his attitude. Flamboyantly Gallic. You see, he said, I have not learnt English because it's the language of my masters, but I have learnt French. And he was really boisterous, and he had written a book letter which, if it would have been published in any English or French, would have won him international renown. It's about the tragedy of a woman who married an old man. The old man died. She was about to be sati. Then they were in the burning ground, and then they were swept away the flood. The sati didn't die, but they died. Self-immolation was there. Then there was another person called Pithish Nyogi, and a Sikh, And in Satyajit Ray had said that in Shantiniketan, three of his friends were Aran Sen, Dinkar Kaushik, and Pithish Nyogi, and it was Pithish Nyogi who taught him how to look at paintings. These are the very words he has said. So he was one of the figures. Then there was Bongshi Chandragupta, a young man from Kashmir had come there. And the point is, you see, he was he was one of the greatest art directors who were born in India. When he made a set outside of the location, cutting all frills and nonsense, you see, it was almost realistic. You could not tell the difference between the original building where he was shooting on location and other. The Bongshi Chandragupta was the only man who had a little chance in one or two films. In one, I remember, he was shouting a slogan as a communist or something like that. Then there was another gentleman. His name was Chanchal Kumar Chattopadhyay. He was a literary man, and he had translated Dante later. Then there was another person, his name was Subhash Ghoshal. I also used to work with him in advertising agency. He was then just beginning his life. He was a relation of Ray's also. And when he died, he was called one of the founding fathers of advertising in India. Then Haridas Gupta, the director, he was also come. And there's another interesting chap, his name was Wanti Khan, Z.H. Khan. He was from Lucknow. And he was a very interesting fellow. First of all, he came from a Nawab family, but he married an Anglo-Indian. So he was discarded from the family. He was like Jesse Owens, sprinting champion of India. He didn't finish his medical education as a sprinting champion of India. And he used to call himself Trotskyite, and also an actor. And another actor was Ronen Roy, about whom I was speaking, a grandson of the Tagore family. They were the early actors in English, not Bengali or any other language. And Wanti Khan was a master of, he was a great punster, you know. Then there was another, several other chaps were there, like Kalisar and Das Gupta. Haridas Gupta's brother. But he was exactly the opposite to Haridas Gupta. Haridas Gupta was an extrovert, but he was so introvert that somebody said if anybody can go to write an anatomy of embarrassment in this century, he will be the person to write it. But he was also a grand chap. Everybody, no matter whether he was vocal or taciturn or not, had contributed a bit. And in an adda, as I call it, you see, everything was discussed, right? But there are also judicious mixtures of gossip, scandal, wit and things like that, without which you can have no idea. Now, what gave us the idea from those sessions that Satyajit Ray was going to be a big man? He had at that time become one of the India's greatest graphic artists. It was not they were called commercial artists, but graphic artists in today's time, and a designer of books. He revolutionized the designer of books in India. But his heart was in making films. He did all this, whatever he did with consummate mastery. You know what I mean? He could not do anything which would be inferior or indifferent. Whatever he tried, he had done. But from the word go, he had been seeing films and things like that, and quietly making, and he was making, he had made it Ghare Baire, which later on he produced, but at that time he couldn't produce. Now, Pather Panchali, he had done a small book for children edition, and then he started writing. He is the first writer who made a script with illustrations frame by frame. And not only that, in 1951, he couldn't get, somebody came and offered him. We thought that there was a man who was the most well-equipped so far in India to produce films where all the arts are in saturation. You know what I mean? You see, because he was an artist, he had the visual training. He was a musical man, so he had the oral training. And he also was a wonderful writer and expressed himself through writing. And also all the senses were developed, because all these senses must work in unison if you want to make a successful film. So that's why I'm not kidding, we thought that here was a man who was going to make most well-equipped man will jump into the fray and make one of the great films. Now, you see, then 1951, you know the story, but eventually government gave him the film and he started shooting on location, cut outing all the cliches, visual, musical, set, costumes, everything. Absolutely natural. And he used to come here with his magnificent stills. They were wonderful, that's the breathe, the local color, the color. And then from time to time, he would invite us to go to the studio to see rough cuts. And you see, they are like pilgrimages. We are the first people to get an inkling into sequences that later became classics in modern cinema. For example, Oppu and Durga rushing through caste fields to see the railway. Oppu and Durga following their sweetmeat seller in a dugdugi. Then Durga getting drenched in rain. Then Durga, the sad death of Durga and things like that. It is not possible for me to individually name, but although there might have been many cliches and mistakes, but as a film, it was the only film that could get away with words. In my opinion, it is the biggest film now. Okay. So, and that was how Ray made his first film. When I was working in Walter Thompson, one of my jobs was doing PR for Pan Am. And John Huston, he was coming to Calcutta to shoot the film. It was a private visit. The man who wanted to be the king, Rudyard Kipling. He didn't shoot it here, but he came. So I went there. I found a tall fellow, 6'5", linear, with a boxer's face, etc. I said, Mr. Houston? He said, yes. Can I walk with me? Because my job depends on you unless you speak to me for a minute. Are you come here for shooting a location? So how do you know? I said, I know a little bit about you. In the New Yorker, I read all the 3 sequences of articles and profile in African Queen. She said, look, do you see what it is? Can you believe this man? Here, he says that he reads New Yorker and he has read all my, all the articles. This calls for a celebration. Let's go to my hotel. How are you going back? I said, I'll catch a bus downtown. We went there and then we poured a neat whiskey up to this. I have never drank before that. So I drank. I don't like that. That gave me the courage of alcohol. And I said, Mr. Houston, I have a request to make. Well, what is it? My friend is making a film, and would you care to take a look at it? Because I think we feel that it is good. Well, all right. So I rang up. Next day we went to the studio, and John Huston was there. He saw the uncut things, and then Manik had a habit of twirling his stunts like that. He said, actually I've seen some of the grimmest footage. Said, no, not grim at all. It's absolutely apropos. By the way, do you know anything about the mechanics of international exhibition? All right, I'll leave my address with Gupta. You must go. Then, after that, he went to New York, MoMA, Museum of Modern Art, Monroe Hill. He said that he was going to hold the India Week. Then, I will suggest that if this film is ready by then, use it as a curtain raiser. And madly, you see, the film was done without subtitles. It was sent there, and it was shown. There was standing ovation for 5 minutes, and that was his first debut. But you know, he felt because he wants to look the papers whether there was any review or not. But you know, don't review a private screening. And then they said glorious success. That was how his first show was organized.